Chew one leaf of a vine that grows wild in central India. Wait 30 seconds. Then put a spoonful of sugar on your tongue. You will taste absolutely nothing. The sweetness is gone. Not muted, gone. As if the wire connecting your tongue to your brain has been completely cut. The effect lasts about 2 hours. The Sanskrit name for this vine has not changed in 2,500 years. It translates directly to sugar destroyer. While modern medicine sells a blockbuster diabetes drug that generated $17 billion last year at a retail price of $1,000 a month, peer-reviewed clinical trials have proven that an extract from this vine allows some diabetic patients to stop their conventional medications entirely. A bottle of the extract, sitting on the exact same American pharmacy shelf, costs approximately $20. Welcome to nature's lost vault. The archive opens in a forest in the western Ghats of southern India, around 600 BCE. An Ayurvedic physician writes on palm leaves. He records a condition he calls madhumeha, which translates from Sanskrit as honey urine. He describes a disease in which a person passes water that attracts ants, grows weak and thirsty, and whose body slowly wastes away even as the person eats more. We would recognize the disease today. He calls it diabetes. Beside the description, he names the plants that reduce its severity. One of them is the climbing vine he calls gurma. He notes that a person who chews the leaf can no longer taste sweetness. But then he notes the much more important thing. After taking the leaf for several weeks, the ants gathering at the urine begin to stop. This is the earliest written description of a plant treatment for diabetes anywhere on Earth. The text would later be compiled into the foundational works of Ayurvedic medicine. They would be copied by hand for 2,000 years. They would survive the rise and fall of empires, and they would identify gurma as the chief plant for the disease of sweet urine. Then came the British. In 1835, a Scottish administrator named Thomas Babington Macaulay wrote a document to the East India Company government. He argued that the entire library of Sanskrit and Arabic knowledge in India, including its medicine, was, in his own words, not worth a single shelf of a good European library. That same year, he wrote the English Education Act. And in that same year, the native medical institution, which had been training Indian doctors in both Western and Ayurvedic medicine, was dismantled. The new replacement would teach Western medicine only. For the next century, every Indian who wanted to practice medicine inside the colonial system had to learn anatomy from a London textbook and forget the plants their grandmothers used. The Ayurvedic texts were not physically destroyed. They were simply declared worthless. The plants they named, including the vine called sugar destroyer, were demoted from the practice of medicine to the practice of peasants. By the time Britain left India in 1947, gurma had been pushed out of the medical mainstream for over a century. Most American doctors had never heard the name. The traditional healer in a village in Tamil Nadu still knew it. The endocrinologist in London did not. But this is the part of the story that almost nobody outside of India ever heard. In 1964, a young biochemist at the University of Madras began reading the old Sanskrit references on diabetes. His team would spend the next 26 years standardizing an extract from the dried leaves of the vine. Then they ran 2 parallel trials. One was in type 2 diabetic patients on oral medication. The other was in type 1 diabetic patients on insulin. By October of 1990, the results were published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology. In the type 2 trial, every single one of the 22 patients had been able to significantly reduce their conventional medication. 5 of them stopped their pharmaceutical drugs entirely, maintaining normal blood sugar on the leaf extract alone. Their hemoglobin A1C, The critical long-term measure of blood sugar control had dropped significantly. Their natural insulin levels had risen, which the authors interpreted as a sign that the beta cells of the pancreas were repairing themselves. In the type 1 trial, where the patients had been on insulin since adolescence, the required insulin doses came down, the blood sugar came down, the cholesterol came down. The patients were not cured of type 1 diabetes. No one claimed that. But they needed drastically less insulin to maintain control, and they suffered fewer of the toxic side effects of years of high blood sugar. The papers were peer-reviewed. They were cited over 1,000 times. And then, for the most part in the United States, they were completely ignored. There is a question worth pausing on here. Why? A plant that reduces or eliminates the need for diabetes medication in a quarter of the patients who take it would, if it were a newly invented chemical, be considered one of the most important findings in the history of metabolic disease. Yet 35 years later, the average American endocrinologist cannot identify the plant by sight, and the average American patient has never heard the Sanskrit name. There is no single explanation, but there is a structural one. Gurma is a plant. It grows wild. It is unpatentable. The leaves can be dried at home. There is no investor return in funding a $30 million clinical trial for a substance that anyone with a greenhouse can grow for free. In the same decade that the Madras papers were filed away, the pharmaceutical industry was moving in a different direction. A new class of drugs, originally derived from the toxic saliva of a desert lizard called the Gila monster, was being developed. The compound that would eventually become Ozempic was synthesized in laboratories in Denmark in 1997 and finally approved by the FDA in 2017. In 2024, Ozempic alone generated approximately $17 billion in global sales. Its sister drug for weight loss generated an additional $8 billion. The combined product line is the most commercially successful pharmaceutical launch of the decade. The average retail price for 1 month of Ozempic is approximately $1,000. A bottle of standardized gymnema extract on the same American shelf is approximately $20. The two are not the same drug. Ozempic mimics a gut hormone that signals fullness and slows stomach emptying. The vine works on 3 entirely different mechanisms. Its active compounds bind directly to the sweet taste receptors on the human tongue, which is why chewing the leaf blocks the taste of sugar. Those same compounds block the absorption of glucose at the wall of the small intestine, so that sugar eaten with a meal moves through the gut without being fully absorbed into the bloodstream. And inside the pancreas itself, the leaf appears to help the beta cells, the cells that make insulin, begin to recover function. 3 distinct mechanisms. 1 vine, $20. The science did not stop in 1990. In 2010, a research team at King's College London confirmed in human pancreatic tissue that the leaf stimulates insulin release. In 2020, a meta-analysis of 10 clinical trials confirmed that the plant produces statistically significant reductions in fasting, blood glucose, post-meal glucose, and hemoglobin A1c. The evidence has been accumulating quietly in journals that the American endocrinology mainstream does not read. Research groups in India, the United Kingdom, and Japan continue to investigate a plant that the United States has simply decided is not profitable enough to be interesting. You would think, given the staggering cost of insulin, the $1,000 price tag of Ozempic, and the crushing burden of diabetes on the American healthcare system, someone would have raised a hand and pointed at the vine. Nobody raised the hand, not loudly enough to reach the American medical establishment. But the plant is still here. It still grows on a climbing vine in central and southern India. Farmers still harvest the leaves. The Sanskrit name has not changed in 2,500 years. The molecule has not changed. The mechanism has not changed. The thing that has changed is that nearly 30% of Americans over the age of 65 now have diagnosed diabetes. The Medicare program spent more than $37 billion in a single year on the complications of the disease. And a great many of those adults are taking a medication every single day that costs $1,000 a month, while a plant with multiple clinical trials, 3 distinct mechanisms, and 2.5 millennia of documented use sits 2 aisles over for $20. This is not a medical recommendation to stop your medication. No one who needs insulin should stop insulin. No one on a prescribed drug should change anything without their physician's guidance. The story is not about stopping anything. The story is about how a piece of medical knowledge documented in palm leaf script in the year 600 BCE, proven in a laboratory in 1990, and reconfirmed in London in 2010, never made it into the conversation between a modern American patient and the physician who treats them. The reason it didn't is not a conspiracy. It is simpler than that. There was no economic engine to put it there. A plant that grows on a vine in the Western Ghats does not have a pharmaceutical sales force in Florida. It does not buy television ads during the evening news. It does not send highly paid representatives to the annual conference of the American Diabetes Association. The story of the sugar destroyer has had to travel the slow way. From village to village, from grandmother to granddaughter, and today, from one viewer of an archive video to another. The Ayurvedic physician knew it. The British colonial administrator declared it worthless. The modern biochemist proved it. The American patient has never heard of it. The texts that named it are older than the New Testament. The trial that measured it is older than the iPhone. And the question of why your doctor has never mentioned it has a very simple answer. There is no money in a plant. If something in this archive opened a thread for you, subscribe to Nature's Lost Vault. The next vault opens soon.